Great to have you. And shout out to Luca who nominated you. We were discussing with you. Okay, it's interesting how we find people like you and how a nomination will lead to the next one. But it's great to have you. And before we go into your life and as a coach or as a deputy academy director or deputy sports director, I don't know officially. What's your official title? What do you write down?
Now is from last few months. It's assistant to sports director, or depends how you translate it to English, assistant or deputy. It was until basically a few days ago, but from I would say 1st of January, let's say it like this, I'm gonna be with this role. I'm gonna be a sports director of Radomlje, which is becoming a club partner of Hajduk Split.
Okay, so a new role, new chances, or new role, new responsibilities. That's the main thing, I think.
Exactly. I would say responsibilities are just expanded, let's say like this, because so far I was taking care of the young players who were finishing the academy. So my job was to integrate them through the loans, through the training, through the games with U19 or training with the first team, that they are reaching their potential.
Yeah.
So now with this partnership that we just signed about 10 days ago, we are kind of getting like a even better platform to reach the potential that we have in our club. Yeah.
Okay, so you signed the partner club, and I can imagine players, talented players, 17, 18, 19, 20, that maybe are a little bit light for playing at the first level at Hajduk or for the first team at Hajduk. They will transfer there for a certain amount of time, get some experience, in, let's say, man football, the more business. No, it's not the business style. It's more about winning, of course. There, it's a different playing field instead of the youth, where you can be more. Well, I'm looking for the words actually. But where winning is less important. It's more about winning.
You know, I would say even in the youth academy, when you reach U17, age groups, the winning is becoming the part of the process of development. You cannot anymore like move these two. Before 15, 14, 13, 12, 9, the development is just more important than winning. But when you come to 17, the winning is becoming the part of the development. You cannot just take it away one from another. So here I would say we are just looking like it's a club. For example, now it's going to be a club in the first Slovenian league, which is like just a bit below Croatian first division, with the quality, with the investment, with everything else, but it's still much better than our second division, which we were usually sending players on loan. So what we are getting is basically you cannot ask from a kid to jump from the ground floor to the second floor. So we have to like create some kind of like stairs for them, and then it's up to them. Are they going to use these stairs well or not? So, but the stairs are still also about the winning. They have to learn how to prepare every weekend to win the match.
What was
What
was the main? So you cannot. It's completely clear for me that you cannot make that big step in one time. What was the major issue that you bumped into when you tried to fit in the players at the first team in the previous situation?
Look, it's like in every other club. I don't think we have to talk about Hajduk Split. We can talk about any other club in Holland or anywhere else.
This is a big challenge. Everybody's looking for a solution on
everyone is looking for this, and then you have like examples that we are not creating something completely new. Maybe new on this part of the world, but like for example, you have this example in, let's say, in Austria with like Red Bull Salzburg, who has Liefering, and they have some system also that's like a national association is giving them a permission that they can play in the second division in Liefering, and then next week they can take them and play first division in the Salzburg. And then this is a step for going later on, in Leipzig. And this way they are just giving to you have players that are ready when they're 17 to play in, let's say, Leipzig. But then you have players who, when they're 17, they can play in Liefering, but they hold the potential to play in Leipzig when they reach the max. But to reach the max, as I said, you cannot ask them to jump on the second floor because it's impossible. You need to create them stairs or the ladders, right? Ladders. So what we are getting with this is just we are creating like a ladders for them to get up. So I will give you now the example. We also in our academy have like a top talents who are ready when they are 17, and usually this is like offensive players, like wingers, maybe attacking mids, these kind of positions, because for them, if they make a mistake in the game for our first team, nothing happens. We maybe miss a chance or miss a pass and so on. But like if the left back or the center back or defensive mid or the goalkeeper make a mistake, most likely we're going to receive the goal, which is going to be taking 3 points away from us this weekend, which is going to be taking like the position on the table, which is going to be maybe taking us like a qualification for the Europe, which is bringing money and so on. So we need to still create the good path for, I would say, especially these positions like center back, goalkeepers, fullbacks, defensive mids, that they can reach their potential. So when they come to play for our first team, like in Hajduk, for example, they are ready to battle, and we don't have to wait for them anymore, but they can contribute immediately.
Right. Ajax has the same model. They have their second team playing in the second division in the Netherlands. They were one of the first to do that, and it's becoming very, very successful because you see these type of players coming up. They already know what it is to play in a senior division, even though they were 17 years old. They learn how to deal with guys that want to play, that play for money, that play a more physical game. And if once they are ready for that, everybody knows this, of course, but once they adjusted there, the step to the first team is so much easier. Frankie de Jong, Matthijs de Ligt are all played in that second team. They are the perfect examples. So yeah, I think it's an interesting step. And it's also, I think if I hear it correctly, there's an international step for you, for the talents, which also brings a lot of responsibility in their life, which is an extra challenge, which you see, okay, they come up, maybe they're living at home, they're getting some money, and then at one point they have to start living by themselves, which also increases the challenges in their daily life, which affects football. And this almost combines those two life experiences, which make when they come back, they are much more mature on the pitch, but also on the pitch, I can imagine.
Absolutely. And this is like, the first time they have to clean clothes by themselves, the first time they have to pay rent by themselves, electricity and so on. And this is like giving them like a life skills that usually staying in Split or in their hometown, it doesn't teach them. So it's absolutely a plus.
Okay, interesting, very interesting. Okay, and for you, it's also a new challenge, a new role, moving from maybe an assistant role to more of a director's role, I think, if I am correct. So what will be the challenges for you in this?
Oh, well, I was learning from my boss, and I could watch the things from like a safe seat.
Yeah.
Now it's the lights are on me, so I basically have to step out and show what I learned. That's one thing. Obviously, it's a easier platform as well because it's a less pressure and so on. It's a smaller club, but now all responsibility, every decision, it's mine.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I have to, learn how to get my assistants, how to use their knowledge, and all of these things that comes together. So
Okay.
basically, that's it.
You seem like a guy that wants that responsibility.
Oh no, for sure, for sure. I was working in academy previously and in Hajduk and in the other clubs before. I was a coach of like U17,
Yeah.
U14, and so on. And now, I had a good experience of learning from sports director in Hajduk just last 6 months. And I feel like okay, and now I need something to get me myself out of the comfort zone as well. And it's like these guys are going on loan. I'm
Yeah.
also going on loan, and
Yeah.
I have to
Exactly.
prove that I hold the potential for something one day, something bigger. So, and I was never afraid in my life, to jump, to travel, to move places, and this is like more in my blood, So it's I'm looking forward absolutely.
Yeah. Because we're going to go back to that question of what's the most essential item because we completely skipped it. We'll do it later. But if I look at your career so far, yeah, you jumped countries, but you also jumped roles. You went, but no, if I'm correct, there was always like a little bit of a management part in your work. I think that connects. You're connecting the coaching part always to more of a coordinative role or a management role. What's the most appealing to you?
No, I would say the the thing that I enjoy the most is coaching. Absolutely. Uh, so I was. That's true. That's true. I was always like kind of doing additional thing. Either I was like scouting, either I was
Yeah,
like managing some kind of parts of the academy, like I don't know, tournaments,
yeah, that's what I saw.
stuff like this, or like now, I'm now kind of, I would say, full time in the management, but also management of the coaches and so on in the youth academy. So absolutely, that's correct, and I think this give me solid background and the knowledge for like for this role that I'm now in, because I can reflect back to the point when I was looking everything from the pitch, from the eyes of the coach, and now I'm looking it from the office, which is it's completely different
What's the biggest
perception.
difference?
When you're on the pitch, you don't think about anything else. You just think, me, I have to make sure that these players are performing the best, my team, my team, my team, and that's it. But when you come in the office, you look much broader things, like more intra, like how to say this. You have to connect more
Yeah,
dots,
yeah,
like you need to know how to speak with the director of finances, you need to know how to speak with director of marketing. Then you realize that like it's not the motivating the players, it's not only about making a best drill on the pitch, it's about like that he has a good life out of the pitch, that his wife is happy, that I don't know, that he's happy, that if his car is broken, how he's
yeah,
going to feel today, or maybe he got a bad grade in the school. So you kind of need to like think on all of this, so you are kind of touching everything for like 10-20%. But when you're on the pitch and you're coach, you're just thinking 100%. Okay, this drill has to be perfect for what I'm looking looking for the weekend. So I would say when you get into management, you learn much more about social skills and
yeah,
about, I would say, how football. If you don't have if the player is not ready mentally and socially, like to be on the pitch, you can make the best drill, but it won't work. So you get much broader picture, and how how people around the players are affecting them, and
yeah.
I think that's very very important.
Do you think it's that when you have this role, when you've experienced this role, if you would step back on the pitch, you are a better coach now?
I would be, but I would need like a year or two to get back into this,
It's
like
details, maybe.
in details, in drill, in the mindset of the coach, because it's different. It's
Yeah,
much different. So, coach he has to be calm. He has to be fresh. He has to think only about his thing. So I believe from this perspective, when I was a coach, I can always kind of protect him better from the things that are happening from outside. So I would say I would not tomorrow be a better coach because I missed last 2 years of developing as a coach and so on. But let's say if I go now back a few steps and then start coaching again from the small how to say lower levels and so on, after 2-3 years I would be a better coach because I had this experience.
What I when we were talking, when we were starting, before we started recording, what's your most essential item? You said the phone, because the phone is there always. And I had, as a head coach of a club, you are almost connected to every part as well, because they want your opinion on everything. And once I stepped on the pitch, my phone was gone, and I almost experienced it as quiet. The pitch is not quiet because there's so many things going on. There's chaos in the exercise and there's intensity, whatever. But it felt like there was nothing there. It was only me and the players, or only my staff and the group of guys. There was no distraction, never. And I kind of hear this in your story as well. So once you step into your office, there's always 100 impulses coming to you from every direction. But once you're on the pitch, it's almost like serene. It feels like there's nothing there.
It's like a Zen moment or something. Like I really admire the coaches who are only coaching, but this is today the assistant coach is becoming, I believe, like a person who is only coaching, because in every coach is becoming little by little some kind of manager. Like even in the youth academies, like a top youth academies, if you think about Feyenoord, Ajax, Hajduk, Split, and so on, the coaches of U17, he has a staff of 4 or 5 people, who like a conditioning coach, goalkeeper coach, analyst, and so on. So he has to just learn how to manage people and get their knowledge the best, and then make decisions. So today I would say the guys who are enjoying the most are the assistant coaches. The guy who is working only on the pitch. But that's how it is.
Do you have any recommendations how a coach should learn those management skills, because they are crucial? And because most of them, I think you also kind of started out as this form. Maybe you played, you were in love with the game. Okay, how can I extend this? I will bring it in a coaching role. It's just the passion for football, and maybe you dive into tactics or whatever, and then all of a sudden you realize I have all these people around me that are watching my every move, and I have to guide them and I have to lead them, which is something that you realize maybe along the way. It's not that I didn't, but I can imagine you didn't either. At one point you realize, they are looking at me, and I have to be now their guide. But then you're already 2 years in, probably. How would you advise a coach to start learning or start doing this?
This is very hard. It's I would say, you like, first, if you're coaching the players, when you come to the point that you have to understand that their feelings, their perception, their ideas, their background, and so on, sooner or later you have to do the same thing with your staff. In football, I would say the football is the industry that develop itself slowest comparing to the others. When you compare it to IT or I don't know, to some businesses, other businesses. So what I would say first to some kind of football coach, that he goes and to look into the other businesses, what they are doing, because football is always I would say few years behind. So you can learn very quick what's going in IT that's going to come in football just maybe in 5 or 10 years. So try to be ahead of the game. The second thing, always the formal education is good, but you need to understand what you're reading. So you mentioned the books and so on. I think the reading the books is very important, but you need to first understand what you're reading, what you're looking into the book. Not that book is guiding you, but you guide what you want to get out of that book. So I think that's very important. So formal education, and then just get out there and try to listen to other people outside of the football, inside of the football, try to get their perceptions and try to understand, you know, how they think, what are their motivations. And when you start thinking about that, then you're going to be able to think how to motivate them, obviously, when you become a boss
Yeah.
or the manager.
Is it something that you do often? So you connect with people outside of your football bubble?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like IT industry, other sports. Also, I think very important to try to get a perception. You also get their ideas about trainings, about coaching, about basically everything. So I usually do that. Absolutely.
Do you have an example of a guy or a person or whatever from outside of
Yeah,
football that affected you
we
in a positive way?
yeah, we just had like 1 week ago, we had one, like it's a legendary water polo coach who coached in Spain, Croatia, and so on. And he gave us like little presentation in our club. And it was very interesting to hear his perception. You know, basically about the management, it's very similar to football. You just have a different dynamics. You know, they are swimming, not running.
Yeah.
But like about the social skills and so on, it's very similar, and it gives you something very interesting. You know, when you handle like a big guys who are 100 kilo of the
Yeah.
muscles, you know, who are eating every day, you know, as a
Like monster.
like two football players, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, so this was the one of the last things. Like I would say in September, I went to some IT festival, which I had like a chance to listen to about 10 IT speakers who have their small businesses. So how they started the small businesses, how they organized like this, like a meetups and so on. And you know, it it gives you some new ideas, you know, what you can do in the locker room, what you can do with the club and the people who working in the club.
Yeah, you also seem like a guy that just puts himself out there. So you're not afraid to go, let's say, to different sectors or industries. And at the same time, you're also a guy. Now you're joined us for a podcast, but I see you've done several things live or online just to share and to talk. Is that something that helps you also to find? I'm probably pretty sure it is, but find new ideas and test your ideas by
No, no,
talking and speaking
absolutely.
to other guys or to other people.
Absolutely. This is like, you know, this Corona thing have many negative things that happen to the world, but you know, I think you know, especially here in Europe, and I think we use it in a good way to connect with so many people. Like I feel like after Corona, like I connected with so many people around Europe just through these webinars and so on that it wouldn't be possible in the dynamics that we lived before Corona, where you don't have a time to sit to watch. I didn't watch TV, never, like
Yeah.
documentaries or so on. Now I had a time to do it. So, you know, again, like found some drive inside of me. And this is absolutely must, you know. Little thing that's missing is this, like a, you know, human touch.
Yeah.
We are talking through the camera. You know, you always want to go to some festival to, you know, after the meeting is done, to have a beer, you know, to talk in some kind of like little more relaxed situations. So you see, you know, more also obstacles and realistics, what is going on, not
Yeah.
only what we want to do. But you know, this is I think it changed football and other industries so much in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I completely agree. The only thing that I have exactly the same, well, especially with connecting, well, what starting this platform and starting the webinars. Yeah, talking to so many interesting guys, but there's such a big difference. We're doing this now. We've known each other, let's say, for an hour, but if you would sit
Yeah.
across to each other at the desk, you can. There's much more connection and there's much more interaction and there's body language and which makes the experience much more intensive, I think,
Absolutely.
much better. Okay, that's it. On the other hand, it's so much faster and so much better that well, not better, it's so much faster and easier to talk to people all around the world that I would recommend everybody to start doing this. We started a small mastermind with people We come together every 3 weeks. We talk football, we talk business, and it gives you a little push every 3 weeks. Okay, in the good direction. How did this work with players? Did the Corona influence the pathway or the development of players also in the past 2 years? Pretty sure it did. And how did it affect it?
No, absolutely. It basically creates some kind of roulette at some point. You know, when you're gonna get corona, when you're gonna have to pause 2 weeks. You know, if you did it in the preseason, it's much easier, or
Yeah,
maybe it's not easier for someone. So this, a lot of times the career, especially the young players, it's about like getting that one chance and then
yeah,
taking it. So imagine you get one chance and then you get corona and then that chance goes away. It's hard to mentally go through this. In the other hand, maybe someone, let's say the older player gets
yeah, yeah.
corona, so young player gets a chance because of corona. So it changed his life in a positive way. So there was many things. Absolutely, the physical wise, it was very hard, especially in the beginning when we didn't know like what when player gets corona, how long he cannot train,
Yeah.
what is going on with the lungs and so on. So it was it was very demanding, I would say, for everyone, for the fitness coaches, for the coaches to organize the sessions, for the players to just adapt to all of this, and it's still going on,
Yeah, of course.
so maybe for the lower levels it's a bit easier, but these top levels, you can see this what's happening now in the Premier League is just you know uh, what good we are doing to the
Yeah.
human body. It's very very questionable.
And what were the positive things that came out of it? Besides,
For the, from the
for
perspective of
players
the
or maybe
players,
for an academy.
well, I really cannot say there was something just positive. Maybe it helped us a bit more to focus on their social skills, to get some kind of educations that are more out of the football, and so the pedagogist, psychologist speaks to them and so on.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know, I don't know. I'm not a player at the moment, but I can think that like players now got this just a word, mental skills, mental health. It just became mainstream in these
Yeah.
2 years.
True. Yeah.
Before it was when you said mental, they were like, I'm not crazy, why I
Yeah.
need this. But today, the world changed in a few days. So like this was like a huge change for the kids and some coaches. So I think they started respecting much more like a mental part of the development.
Did you also see that there was less pressure in the academy? Because I talked to some coaches here. They said, okay, there's no games because
Hmm.
for a while they couldn't play any games, so there was only training sessions, which obviously leaves out the weekend pressure of performing and being in the starting 11. They have more time to work on. They have more time to work on principles. Let's say they felt that there was a safer environment than before. There's also a downside because there's less pressure and there's less if less pressure, there's also less performance probably.
Mm.
But it had two parts.
Well, this depends from the country to country, how the governments were
Yeah,
dealing with the
of course,
corona
of
and so
course.
on.
Yeah.
We didn't have such a huge lockdown,
Okay.
and so basically we just had a little break when it was a bit like in this first wave from March 2020, I believe, to like May 2020, and then after that we were always open and the games were happening. They were playing. Actually, there was like, if I don't know, few players get corona, then you can cancel the game. So actually it created even more pressure, I think,
Okay.
on in Croatia on the coaches. So we didn't have this situation. So from that side, I cannot really say.
Okay. Okay. So the pressure was still on. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you also believe that pressure brings out the good in people?
Huh. It's you know people, when you say people, it's a
People,
big
players.
question
We're
question
talking about
mark. Yeah,
football.
when you say the players, I believe it brings good to the guys that has potential to play on the really top level, because pressure there is just it always going to be there.
Yeah.
It's just a too big business, too big money, too big everything happening. For the players who are maybe not for the top class, it can create like a negative, I think, influence on them as a human beings, because they don't know how to cope with this. They would never be able to
Yeah.
cope with this on this level, and they want more calm life. But then they cannot do it, because just football is as it is, and then it creates some time when player can burn out from this situation. So I believe for the top guys, yes, because then you see who is the top guy, if he can cope with the pressure and so on, and it also creates create it changes the paradigm. What is the good player?
Yeah.
Usually when kid is 13, 14, 15, 16, you are like just looking his technique, his tactic, and so on. But then when he comes 17, 18, the more and more becomes this like who has a character, who has like a mental skills to cope with the pressure, to lose on Saturday and to be ready on Sunday to work up to win the next match next weekend. So it just changed the paradigm of understanding what is a good player and what is
Yeah.
not.
So you were talking about the pressure, and it brings out the best maybe in top players. What is your idea on, because you maybe in each team have 2, 3, maybe 4 of those players. The rest
Yeah.
maybe average, and you have a group that's below there. Which level should you work? Because should you keep the whole team? Should you keep them on the top level and pressure them to get there, or should you be in the average, or what's your approach there?
No, I'm gonna a little bit rephrase myself from what I said also before. There is a players who can cope with the pressure when they're 17, and there is a players that they probably cope with the pressure, but maybe when they're 23.
Okay.
That's why is also this like project that I mentioned
Yeah.
before. It's
Yeah.
like we have to create maybe we have to send them in the environment where the pressure is less, so they can. There is still pressure, but it's less, so they can adapt this level of pressure, and then this level of pressure, and then they can come and they can realize, okay, pressure is basically in your head.
Yeah.
People will always from outside make a pressure, but it's up to you how you're going to react, and this is basically a pressure.
Yeah.
So if you can stay focused even when everyone is like attacking you, media and so on whatsoever, and you work like nothing is going on, you cope with the pressure perfectly. So it all depends, like when you go, are you going to ever be able to do it? There is some people that never going to
Yeah.
be able to do
Yeah.
it. There is some players who needs just experience of smaller pressure and then bigger, bigger,
Yeah. Yeah.
bigger, and then
Yeah.
come to
That's
that point.
experience. Yeah.
Or you just have a guys who are like I'll call them a gladiators, who can, when they are 15, 16, they have this just character that they are not afraid of anything and so on. So it's also as well as a development. I call it in the when I worked a long time in the youth academy, so I say that there is a 3 minefields on the development of the youth player. First minefield is around 11, 12
Okay.
years old, when you are entering this like a big size pitch.
Yeah.
A lot of things change then. It's a bigger ball, bigger pitch, more space, how you adapt and so on. And then second minefield is around 15, 16, when the body starts growing
Yeah.
quicker or slower for the different players. So like this is all going to come to the point that it's not relevant, but how you survive these 2 years or 3 years, if you are maybe a smaller kid that need a longer time to get their biological age and the chronological age together, how your head, like how your mental part is gonna go through this, It's like another minefield, you know. And then the third minefield is like when you're stepping into the senior football,
Yeah.
which is like you're playing with the guys who are 10 years older than you and has, you know, 1,000 more games than you.
Yeah.
Are you gonna quicker adapt, slower adapt, and so on? This is a third minefield, and this is where the work of us as a management, as a coaches, it's extremely crucial. You know how to push them, but also how not to burn them out. And when I'm looking, I'm always looking these three minefields. When I'm looking the player who is, for example, struggling, or if I see the player who just goes through this really simple, you know, and then I'm making decisions like who needs 2 loans, 2 years of loan, who
Yeah.
needs 1 year of loan, who don't need a loan.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot about how they go through the first two
Yeah.
minefields.
So you have
You know,
already an impression of a player how he's dealing with change because you
yeah,
know him already for 5 6 years,
yeah,
and then you take that into account right before or during the third step.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay, what is if a player is struggling maybe in that first phase? Okay, he's moving up to the 11 versus 11 side. You
Yeah.
see already there's a struggle there. Can you still adjust him and prepare him that he goes to the second part better and eventually ends up being a strong player in the third? Or is it nature or nurture? That's an interesting part there. Is it something that's inside the
I would
person
say
or
it's a
can you
I
change?
would say I always say it's I'm never radical, you know, like it's this or that.
Yeah.
I believe for someone is more this and for someone is more that, but you can always influence it.
Yeah.
Not to, so much for someone more, but you can influence it. And this also depends on, you know, their background, their, you know, who are their mother and father, who are their
Yeah.
grandma and grandpa, and so on. Uh, you know, I deeply believe that potential of a player you can see by 11, 12 years old. And this potential, if you create, uh, you know, if
You're
he
talking about
if
mentally or in the total package?
total package,
Total
I would
package.
say the total package. Obviously, the adolescence is going to come. You know, it's
Yeah.
going to change some hormones, la 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 la. But you know, you can see in the kid, you know, how he acts in the pressure. Also, when he's 10, 11, so on. The thing is that after that, the extrinsic influence,
Yeah.
extrinsic motivation is becoming more and more important. And now this is up to us, you know, as an academy, as a club. How are we gonna be able to create an environment where the kid and the first it's gonna be parents. You know, you need to make them believe that, you know, guys, this is normal. He's gonna go now. He's going through the first minefield. You know,
Yeah.
maybe he stepped on the mine already, but like, you know, believe to us, we're gonna do it in a way that in 2 years, when everything comes together, he will be fine. But what is very important, why I'm saying the parents, because you know we have a kid maybe 6 or 7 hours per week, but all other time or majority of other time is the parents
Yeah.
who are talking to him. No, they're talking to him about football as well. So they're gonna tell him this, or you're gonna make them believe. So they're gonna tell what you want them to tell him. You know, not to make pressure on him or to make a pressure on him. So this is the art of, you know, coaching and the managing the youth player to move on. You know, when you come to 16, 17, then you don't have to anymore convince the parents. Now you need to convince maybe the agent of a player and the
Yeah.
girlfriend of a player, you know, and they have now the biggest influence on him. Obviously, first thing you need to convince the player that he believes to you. But as I said, extrinsic influence is becoming bigger and bigger. So the more you control the extrinsic influence, I believe you can make kid go through this. And
Yeah.
then when he's 18, 19, or maybe 23, I believe he's going to come back to that what he was when he was 10 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
It only depends how hard the explosions are gonna get him, through these
Yeah.
minefields.
Are
Yeah.
we preventing too much players to step onto the mines? Are we creating too much of a safe environment for players?
That's again, it's an art of managing and the art of coaching. I like, there is one quote that says the uh, smooth sea never made a skillful sailor,
Yeah,
and I use it in every presentation that I do, like on this kind of webinars and so on. We have to create normal environment, but the normal, like when he's 27 and playing in Real Madrid, there is 50,000 people and they expect
yeah,
you to score a goal or not to concede a goal. This is not a normal environment. You don't have this in the IT industry. On Sunday you can be the hero, next Sunday you can be the whatever is opposite of the
yeah,
hero.
yeah. Zero.
So this is not a normal environment. So you have to create some kind of half hostile environment,
Yeah,
or at least you have to little by little prepare them for the hostile environment.
yeah,
So this is, you exactly said it perfectly, like how to create this, like some kind of middle, some kind of flow that's not going to be too easy or it's not going to be too hard.
yeah. It's interesting because I'm a parent now, and then you want your kids to be safe because it's a natural instinct. But as a coach, is maybe as well, if you have players 10, 11, whatever, you want them to be safe and happy. And you're maybe overprotecting these moments that they find disappointment or whatever, that they struggle, that they fall. They have to, you want to help them get up, but they have to get up themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard part. And I also, well, these times are relatively easy for everybody. There's always the basics are always there. I even at any club, everything is there. Even everybody can train on almost the best materials. Of course, there are exceptions. But how do you create? That's interesting. In such a safe environment, in such a smooth environment, how do you still find the balance to create maybe a little bit of struggle, or you don't want controlled struggle because also a little bit fake. You want
Yeah.
them to fight. We had this moment that I was working at the U13. It was the best U13 amateur team of the Netherlands, and there was bullying in the dressing room because it's a hostile environment. All these kids want to play there. They want to play in the first 11. Of course, we were pretty social in substituting, but there was bullying in the dressing room. It's a natural process. Kids bully. It's normal. What do you do then? It's so interesting. Do you step in and do you break everything? No, this is not right. Or do you let the players solve it themselves? It's maybe the hardest question of coaching, because at one
Yeah.
point you want to step in, guys. This, of course, you have to teach them what is normal. I completely agree. But you also want a kid that can stand up for itself, and because he has to stand up in life, not even in football, in life, he has to learn it. So yeah,
This is, I think it's amazing topic, and we discuss it a lot here. I discuss it through the perspective of Croatia. Croatia is known like, wow, how many good football players we have on the 4 million people only.
yeah,
But I always say that I believe the Croatia is at the moment in the perfect equilibrium between like a unstructured environment, which is giving you possibility to be creative, but also possibility to that you're gonna have a hard times, and only the best guys are gonna survive this. And when they survive Croatia, going to Germany to play
yeah,
in Italy or Spain, it's simple
yeah,
for them. And some kind of structure, because you still play football, you have 11 guys on the pitch and 7 on the bench. It's a big amount of the people, and you need to structure them to work together somehow to be competitive and successful. So I believe Croatia is in the best equilibrium that creates the best of both with such a small amount of the population. Like if I take two other like ends, I would say, like, when I look at the Scandinavian countries, the Germany, I was living in Germany. In Germany everything is structured,
yeah,
which is giving them very structured players, very organized, very, how to say, you can even talk about honest people and so
Yeah,
on.
polite
But
people almost.
it doesn't create someone who can cope with everything that comes in front of him. It doesn't give creative players, because when everything is structured, it has to be creative, to
Yeah,
be different from the others. While in the other hand, you have like Brazil. I was traveling there 2 times just to see this, why they have so many creative players. It's like they have to survive every day on the street in favela. Why so many players comes from favela? Because they have to every day survive. It's on the going to school or it's playing football. They have to fight for their life in every minute when they are there playing football, going to the shop, whatever.
yeah,
And then, that's why when you're looking like a top level football, that's why you have a lot of players from Africa, from Brazil, South America, because, a lot of kids burn out there and they become like a social problems, I would say, in their country and so on, because they had a talent, la la la, but they didn't survive because the environment for developing is not good. But the guys who succeed all of that and go through all of that, they are stronger.
yeah.
They are, there is a steel around them because they go through everything, and that's why they are on the top level. They just are not afraid of stepping up. While for us, in the Europe, our life is more and more structured, and maybe this is not environment that's creating the 90 minutes gladiators
No.
in front of 50,000 people on the stands who can cope with the pressure and so on. So we create a lot of solid players who play first division, second division, third division, and so on. But these top levels, usually there is one good quote, I believe, from Gilberto Silva, the player who played in Arsenal from Brazil.
So, yeah.
He said, there is no player with a full fridge. If you have a full fridge at home, you're not hungry, to succeed. So it's very interesting to think about this.
Could you train or even create influence player that have everything at home or have everything in their country to still be a warrior? Is that possible?
You can absolutely, you can, but not as much as we think as a coaches, as a managers, and so on. There is I was I was doing my master, so I was reading a lot. I was trying to find a lot of science about this, and the closest that I found was some research on the Olympic development of the Olympic players. So it's not connected so directly to football, but I think we can put some line. So there is like this de Boucher. I think it's a lady from actually Holland. She has a few like a model, split model, and there is a books about it and so on. And she's talking about this. So they're saying that like now we have about, as the clubs and the coaches, we have about 50% of the influence if we control all of these variables that we have. Other 50% is just out of our control, and it depends where we are living. Are we living in Croatia, that's like youngest member of the European Union, or you're living in the North Korea, which is like dictatorship? You just have to cope with that, whatever you have there. But 50% it's up to us. 50% it's up to where they live. Are they living in Croatia where there is a lot of sunny days, or you live in Finland that there is no sunny days? And this is something that at some point we cannot influence it. And the influence it's getting bigger and bigger because we are developing the processes, the clubs, we are investing more money and so on. We are even, let's say we are in Finland, so we build like a pitch that's inside the gym and we create the artificial sun or something,
Yeah.
But they're saying like maybe how much, 50, 60, 70 years ago, she's saying in the book that like we had only like 20, 30% influence, the coaches. But then, in the Soviet Union, they started this like a army regime that they were like a professional sportsmen as well. So they started controlling what they eat, how they sleep, and so on. So the percentage of the influence was getting bigger and bigger, and we are on this wave. but still it's only 50%.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was, while you were telling this, I was thinking about this American gymnast. I forgot his name. She went to the Olympics, and then she bailed out of three from four competitions because she had some mental issues. And then I heard a
Yeah,
quote.
I heard, yeah.
Yeah, a Bailey, I think. I don't. Maybe I'm not saying it wrong, but and then I heard some quote of a report. I don't know, but it got me thinking. Yeah, you never hear people from poor countries having mental problems because they don't have time for that. They just fight for their life and their well-being. They don't have time to. I'm not saying it's bullshit. That's not the case, but they don't have. They have other issues.
Yep.
They need food and shelter. I'm being very superficial in this case, but I think you understand what I mean. It
Yeah,
completely,
it's all
completely
about the Maslow hierarchy of needs, you know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting that because in the Netherlands we are also a very structured country. Football is very structured. We have, I think, one advantage that we have a creative mind and we always ask why. We don't accept everything, so you still have players that start to think from themselves. But at the same time, yeah, it's the safest environment ever. And here you also see people from let's say the suburbs and less good neighborhoods. They are the ones that are successful in the youth academies. They have more of a fighting spirit in the dressing room and on the pitch. They come here because literally they are with five brothers in a small apartment and they have to beat the guy that has PlayStation everything in the room. It's an easy match once you step onto the pitch. It's not an easy match in life, but on the pitch they eat them for breakfast.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a
It's
complete.
there is like, when you're looking from the science perspective, I talk in some of these presentations that I did, the webinars. It's about social mobility. I see. You know, it's social mobility is a term that says, like, if your parents were poor in the country that has a bad social mobility, the most likely you're going to remain poor, even if you finish the college, even if you work hard and so on. It's just the country doesn't have a good system that gives like a quality to raise up,
Yeah.
you know, in the levels. If the social mobility is good, which like usually is the European countries, right? Where like if you are, you know, in the businesses, the guy who owner wants to have the best worker because he's going to create him a more value on the market and so on. So like in Europe, if you are poor and you finish college and you work hard, you know, usually you're going to move up, maybe not completely up, but you're going to move up.
You make some steps.
But if you live in this, as we said, unorganized countries, or you live like in, as you say, in Holland, but you are in this suburban areas, there is still like a harder time for someone who is an immigrant to move up and so on. But there is one thing that like social mobility is like 100%, or like it's top, and that's football. You come on the pitch and it doesn't matter
Nobody cares.
who is your dad or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So like every parent wants his kid to try first football, and then if they cannot do football, they go to something else. While for the people, like for the richer parents, they are like, you know, football is like a gladiatorship, this and that. If my kid goes to be an auto mechanic in Germany and he's a very good auto mechanic, he's still gonna drive Porsche.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But if you're auto mechanic in I don't know, in 10 years ago in Croatia or in Brazil, you're gonna drive a bicycle to your work.
Yeah.
So it's all about this, about the motivations and what it creates, what kind of environment.
I think it's one of the most interesting discussions at these times of football. Okay, you still have tactics, but okay, how does these social processes affect the pathway? And it's not, and it's I find it so interesting because you are work at a top academy, but at every amateur club you have this. At every local club you have this. In every dressing room it's there, and especially in football it brings everything together, all cultures, everything, and everybody is the same. You don't need money. Okay, you need maybe some money to but it's a very accessible sport, so it comes there, and it's so interesting for me as a coach. Okay, how do you deal with maybe these little spoiled kids, and at the same time you have these kids that are fighting for their not fighting for their life, but their standard of life, and how do you mix this, and how do you which way do you choose? I think it's one of the most important and interesting things for
I absolutely agree, and I'll try to make a parallel with the like now the top level football. Like I really admire, for example, Jurgen Klopp. The way he managed the team and so on. I would say I don't know much, but I'm trying to think. And for me, it's not a coincidence that Jurgen Klopp up top, like in these three attacking positions, and like let's say midfield as well,
yeah,
offensive, are all the players who are coming with the background of, I'm not sure if they were poor, but they were coming from like Firmino is from Brazil,
yeah,
so South America, and Mane and Salah are from Africa. So I'm pretty sure they went through the hard time. So he knows that like they're gonna be motivated. They're gonna fight for their life there to score something and so on. While when you look the other positions, like when you look more going backwards,
black, yeah,
defensive mids, center backs, and so on, are the guys who are very good structured, very good organized, have good discipline, and so on. Like he has a right Dutch guy, English guy, left and right back are from Great Britain. So it's I believe he thinks about this when he's selecting the players as well. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me it looks
yeah.
like this.
Oh, it's one point thinking. It's almost a natural selection as well. I think it's
Yep.
you see it in every team, even in your local teams. You see almost all the times the kids that are more balanced backgrounds. They are more the holding players, and you
Yeah.
see the little bit creative, crazy guys that also have a crazy edge that maybe could be aggressive or they can maybe lazy, whatever.
Mm,
They're also the ones that are can do special things at the same time.
yep.
It's so interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned some books. Yeah. Can I assume that you read while you have time, while you're not on the phone calling everybody and then getting
Yeah.
to find some time to read in between?
Well, I would say I didn't read much before in my life, but last few years I'm trying to get more on the paper again.
Yeah.
I was more about like watching the documentaries,
Yeah.
watching some kind of movies that have real life stories and so on. But last few years, and especially when the COVID started, I kind of put myself like a kind of like a bucket list, like I should go and read. So like at the moment I'm like reading two books. The one is about like my friend from the IT. He gave me a book that's talking about the like creating the startup like environment
Was it
in
Lean
the city.
Startup?
No, I actually have a book here. It's like creating a startup communities. I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
it's something like this. It's called. So they are talking like how in the USA they were creating from cities that had no industry, some
Ah.
kind
Okay.
of like
Yeah. Yeah.
startup community and so on. So how they changed like the environment so that young motivated people wanted to come to live in these areas and so on. I think like this is something when you're creating the club and the environment,
Yeah.
you can
I
always
was thinking it
get
connects
some
to your new
ideas.
role, maybe that you're
Yeah,
creating
yeah,
a new environment, that you're at the club that you're going, and you maybe
yes.
connects to that story or to that part of your career
Yeah,
now.
I mean, I started much earlier before I knew about this project, but yeah, this is something I think that can help benefit from it. Another book that I just got it from the Christmas, so I'm on the first page is like it's called Ubuntu.
Ah.
It's
Okay.
about some kind of African way of living. It's like I think it talks about how some tribes in Africa,
Yeah. I know it.
they
Yeah.
have a feeling for a people and so on. So I think this is all. I always try to be between some spiritual things and some like hard that you can
Yeah. Yeah.
touch that
Hard
means
skills, soft skills. Yeah.
experience. Yeah, I'll tell you honestly. I like to read the biographics.
Yeah.
So like I read Guardiola.
Yeah.
This I forget the name of the book, but it's talking about his path from the player to being a coach in Barcelona to Bayern Munich. This is where it stops. And I had a chance when I was driving from Germany to Croatia. I listened like audiobook of Jurgen Klopp and
Ah,
his life, and this is like about sports. I like a lot also to read biographies from the politicians
okay.
because I believe like it's a industry. It's not the industry. It's like whatever the jobs,
The environment.
that
Yeah.
environment that's very similar to football, like very demanding every day. There is no
Emotional.
relaxing, emotional. Basically, they are going from election to election, but it's also more about like every day's election.
Yeah.
If you lose your people who are supporting you and so on, and it's very similar in football about the fans and so on. So I had a chance to read about some politician here in Croatia. You won't know about him, but I was uh, I was reading book from Obama. He's like I think it was one of the first two books that it went out from him, and then a little bit I was reading about Winston Churchill as well. This was,
Interesting.
some interesting times, I would say, in the human history. I think you learn a lot there about leadership, about taking hard decisions, and about the motivation of the people.
It's so interesting that every time I sit down with somebody from the football industry, you are a hardcore football coach and manager. You combine these roles, and we always
Yeah,
end up talking about life. It's never about tactics and pressuring with the nine and whatever. It's always we always end up in these discussions. It's
yeah,
it's it kind of connects with what's the most important out there, and this is all the feeling that we have when we're talking about football is just the context. It's in the end always about working with people and the environment and etc. I
yeah.
find it impressive.
It's like you have to take care of all of this in order for the tactics to work out. So like the more you learn about tactics, the more you're realizing in order for me to push this, you know, players have to believe me. The president needs to believe me. My fitness coach needs to believe me. He needs to believe in the vision that you are supporting. And it's obviously like, don't get me wrong, I'm like following all this like YouTube channels, Facebook, some kind of post about new tactics, how we do this, how we defend 4-4-2, how we do that and that. But then when you come to these conversations, I think you are always starting from something that's the most important. And probably on the fifth hour of our conversation here on the webinar, we'll come to tactics.
No, no, it's
Or,
true. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I completely agree. If you cannot manage or interact or connect with your people around you, it doesn't matter what type of style you have as a coach. You can stand in front of the board, share
Yeah.
how you want to pressure, but if nobody is willing to listen, it doesn't matter. So first, you have to really connect with everybody and yeah, find a way to have a common goal.
Yeah.
And yesterday I did a recording with Peter Schasselbert, who you also know from some online sessions, I think.
Yes.
And he also added something. Okay, and this whole process starts with knowing yourself. So if
Yeah.
you can learn everything about interaction, but if you don't know how you're going to respond yourself, or if you don't know what your true beliefs are, it doesn't even matter. So that's maybe even more foundation that we didn't touch up on. We're not gonna either, but yeah, that's even more a step back. But you seem to me like a guy that thinks about that uh, when he finds the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
I cannot say much more.
Yeah. Well, it's been an interesting discussion so far. Before we close this up, who should we talk to next, Andro?
Well, through my life and traveling and so on, I met a lot of interesting people. So I would say, for example, my boss at the moment, Mindaugas Nikolicius, and the head coach Valdas Dambrauskas are absolutely the ones you would be so interesting to talk. I'm not sure if they at the
We'll
moment,
see.
on these higher positions, they
Yeah,
would
sure.
accept it. But for sure, there is my previous boss, Ivan Kepčija. He was a sports director in Hajduk, and earlier he was sports director Legia Warsaw.
Okay.
He is also interesting from this perspective of the management. If we talk about coaching, I mentioned Valdas Dombrovskis, who is now coach of the Hajduk Split. Very interesting person with a very interesting story. There is one coach that through my travelings, and he's a youth academy coach in Corinthians.
Okay.
He's coaching at the moment U17 of Corinthians, and I believe he just won the national title in Brazil a few days ago.
Okay.
What's
his name?
His name is, just a moment. It's hard, in Brazil everyone is called the same. But I would
I'm pretty sure that in Brazil they say the same about
yeah, I'll tell you. Just a moment, sorry. So I don't make mistake, His name is Gustavo Almeida.
Okay.
He's a U17 coach in Corinthians in Brazil. For me, a very, very, very good coach. It's not easy to coach in Brazil, and especially he wasn't a big name. He wasn't a big player.
Okay.
And he's doing some very good things there, and I would highly recommend him. He speaks very good English.
Okay.
I think I gave you good 4 options.
Oh, you gave me already 5 names. So
one more person that also highly gave me a good impression, and at the moment he's assistant coach to Jurgen Klopp.
Okay.
I met him in Porto 2016. He was a coach of U14, but then he had a path afterwards. He worked in China, and now he's a second assistant to Jurgen Klopp in Liverpool. His name is Vitor Matos. He's Portuguese.
You are the second coach, the second guy that nominates him.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a good thing. Now he really feels the pressure. Now we have 2 guys that are pointing towards him. So we should
very
be
good.
able to get him.
I know that he was actually I believe doing his Erasmus in Holland.
Okay.
So that's why he probably knows some Dutch people, and now he's working with the Dutch, the first assistant of Jurgen Klopp. I'm bad with the name, sorry.
Yeah.
So I think.
Okay. Well, you gave me a whole list, so I have some people to call. Thank you very much.
Yes. No problem.
And we'll see who will find the time, because I know, and I'm pretty used to that everybody has a full schedule. So we will manage a way to see who gets inside the coach's room. Okay, Andro, I thought this was an interesting discussion, and like I said,
for me as well.
For 5 hours, and we would have ended up in tactics. Maybe we'll do it again. Maybe we can start with the tactics, but we'll probably end up talking this way again. So
probably.
No, thank you very much. I'm going to wish you a lot of luck and strength in your new job.
Thank you very much.
Seems like a nice challenge that fits you at the right moment. That's my outside perspective. I think you're up for this challenge, and it's going to be. I'm going to recommend you to keep your charger close to you or your battery full. Because there's going to be a lot of messages and important calls coming your way starting the 1st of January.
That's true.
And I'm interested. I'm going to follow up on you, and we'll stay in touch for sure.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, and I follow football webinars, and I believe it's an extremely interesting project.
Thank you very much, and speak to you soon.
Okay. Thanks. You. Bye.
Bye.